When you come to client work truly wanting to be of service, without the ego, just ready to listen, ready to understand, and trusting that the guidance will come through, then difficult clients will no longer be a worry. But when you're starting out as a professional healer, helping the people around you, then you will meet people that find it difficult to express themselves, don't know what to say, have problems answering your questions. It happens, but the way that we act and react and the frequency that we bring to the situation is what brings real breakthroughs. Today we're going to be talking about a few things that you can do and how you can deal with those situations with more confidence, with more connection, while at the same time accepting that we do have days that are difficult, where we have clients that we just can't seem to get through to, that are not open, and that's okay. One of the fears that I noticed in myself as I was starting to work with clients more professionally is the fear of saying the wrong thing or of saying too much in a client situation. There's this feeling that we need to fill the space, that we need to perhaps keep the rhythm going and keep talking. You might even notice that the client feels a little bit uncomfortable when there's silence, and so they start to talk about random things or try to fill the space because they feel nervous. One thing you can do is at the start of a session, you can mention to a client, just to let you know, there might be pauses. I might take a breath during our session, and this is just so that I can reconnect to my intuition. You might use other words. Sometimes I like to come back into presence, whatever it is, but just giving the client a heads up gives them some space and it gives you some space. Because what I've found is that the magic comes from the space. And so when we're listening, when we're allowing those pauses and giving ourselves time to reconnect if necessary, then there is a loosening of the energy. And those clients that you felt were stuck, the energy changes. And you might be worried about saying the wrong thing. But when you are working with clients for the first time, then you will be very prepared. Often we are over-prepared. As an astrologer, I'm going in with so many notes and so many things that I've looked over because there's so much information that you can read in the birth chart. And actually I'll use maybe a quarter of that information. So it's important to be prepared, have some key points that you think will be useful for the client, but to listen and to trust that the things that you pick up on, whether that's noticing the language that they're using, their body language, maybe you just get an intuitive knowing that you want to say something and say it. Because even if it seems like it's wrong in the moment, it could be the case that that client later remembers that thing that you said and it is very relevant. Not so long ago, I had a hypnotherapy session with a very dear friend who's a great hypnotherapist. And as we were coming towards the end of the session, she did a lovely technique where she asked me to imagine being on a beach. And I was already quite deep into the meditation, and she started to guide me into this story. And she said, imagine you're on the beach, you're walking down the beach all alone. And just that word, alone, triggered something massive in me, and I burst into tears. And I was just sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. And of course, as a therapist, you might be like, oh my God, what have I said? It's, triggered this very strong reaction. And you might be worried about that. But actually, that's exactly the word that I needed to hear. Without even knowing, there was something inside me that was very afraid, that was very fearful of being on my own. And I hadn't even realized that. And obviously, we both realized that. And I was able to talk about it and talk to her about what had come up for me. But sometimes you might feel like the client is not making progress, or that what you've planned is not working. And actually, suddenly, just something you can say can really open their heart in a way that you hadn't expected. I like to remember during my sessions to be presence orientated rather than goal orientated. When we're thinking about what we want to achieve with the client, then we're thinking about the future. We're projecting what we think should happen in the session. Whereas if we're presence orientated and we're staying grounded, then you are more engaged in the energy and the vibration of the moment. And the client will feel your whole frequency. They don't feel like you're lost in thoughts. When you're practicing presence, they can feel that, and they're more likely to relax, to open up in some way. The second idea I want to discuss is about being aware of your own need for validation. When you start client work, Part of you wants to feel like you're doing a good job, that you're giving all you can to help them to heal. But your need for validation is blocking their need to be themselves. If you notice that you are saying something to a client during a session and you're expecting a certain response, just check yourself, take a breath, breathe into the heart, feel the breath coming into the heart and into the back of the heart. And as you breathe out, just relax your shoulders, relax the body and let go. Notice that mind, that feeling or thought, this is the one that's gonna really connect. Because we're all on our own journey. As a therapist, as a healer, you do have a huge amount of wisdom, a huge amount of experience that you are bringing to this client. But that client has their own path. And as you work with them, they will connect with their own inner wisdom. And what you will find is that you learn from them as well. Let me know in the comments if you've had a difficult client in the past. How did you get over it? So the next thing I want to talk about is the planet Mercury. Now, the planet Mercury is connected to the way that we think, the way that we communicate, the way that we process the world around us. And so everybody is very unique. We can see this in the birth chart. Even though we have just 12 signs that the planet Mercury can be in, there are actually numerous different positions, degrees, relationships between the other planets that Mercury can make. And this makes our personal way of communicating, of thinking and processing thoughts very unique. Now, if you know the birthday of your client, then you can actually find this out quite easily. You don't need to know the birth time necessarily, and it can give you some useful information. You don't need to know a lot of astrology. You can simply write into ChatGPT, my client has the planet Mercury in this sign. How could I interpret that? How can I work with that in my client sessions? And of course, there's so much more information if it's connected to another planet in some special way, depending on the speed of the planet when the person was born. This is all a bit more complicated, but something as simple as knowing what sign the planet Mercury is in can give you some really useful information of how that client processes information, how that client communicates. If you know that you've got a client who's been more difficult to work with, then you could also incorporate the crystal fluorite. I have this beautiful fluorite crystal. Some of you have seen it before. Isn't it amazing? So this is the crystal that I use for my astrology work. I've dedicated it specifically to help me with clear thinking. And fluorite is just such a beautiful stone for working in an intellectual way, because the energy of fluorite helps us to link together thoughts. It helps us to think more clearly, to receive messages, information from the divine more clearly. And so it can just be a nice addition to your therapy space that adds a subtle vibration that encourages us to connect ideas in ways that perhaps we hadn't thought of before. And so, as always with crystals, make sure you cleanse your crystal before you're using it. And you can just place it in the therapy room, or you can use one of the sequences we've used in other videos. I'll link that at the end. And also to remember that some clients, they won't stay. Some clients will feel so stuck and feel like sessions are very difficult that they might not continue, and that's okay. We are on this unique journey, and not everyone is for you. Not everyone is going to resonate with what you have to offer. And we have to not take that personally, but trust that the people that are meant for you will come. That the ones that are meant for you that are difficult at the start will begin to hear you, will begin to open up. And of course, the longer that you can work with a client, the more that you can really connect with what they need and how they best open up. You'll be able to sense as soon as they walk in the room if they're having one of those stuck days. And you'll have your tools for dealing with that as you learn more. But from every client, we will learn, we will grow, just as they do. It's more important that we stay in the flow, that we don't hold on to the outcome, what we think should happen. What you will find is your most challenging clients become your greatest gift and your most rewarding work. Thank you for watching today.